Here at the Cheap Audio Man, we talk about high-value, hi-fi, home theater, and headphone equipment, and it doesn't get much higher value than this. What is it? This is the Emotiva new B2 Plus. It's a bookshelf speaker. So sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and let's talk about the Emotiva B2 Plus. All right. This is a new speaker from Emotiva. I was thrilled to just get back from the Texas Audio Roundup. It featured Emotiva and Skit, but there's a few other, manufacturers there. For me, personally, there was a whole bunch of new stuff. But for me personally, this was the star of the show. Why? Because it's affordable. And now, the B series can pretty much be an anchor for a 2-channel or even a home theater speaker. Why? Because it has a 6.5-inch driver, a new one. B1 Plus, sounds nice, doesn't it? The B1 Plus had a 5.25-inch woofer. This one has a 6.5-inch woofer. The B1 Plus went down to 48 hertz on the low end. I think that's plus or minus 3 dB. This B2 Plus goes down to 40 hertz. Plus or minus 3 dB, and I verified that with Jake over at Emotiva. Jake's a nice guy. They all are. Nick, Jake, the other guys, Ed. I don't think there's an Ed over there. But if there was, he'd be a nice guy. This speaker has an interior volume of 5.4 gallons. That's a lot of Sunny D that you could pour in there. But it's ported, so I wouldn't recommend doing that. Now, the B1 Plus comes in around at 2.7 gallons for its internal volume. I'm no mathematician, but the B2 Plus is 3,000 times the internal volume. I'm just kidding. Obviously, it's 10 times the internal volume. This thing does make a lot more bass. And I know that because I've been listening to it for the past 2 days. Now, to preface this video is an initial impressions video, not a review. But there's some things that I can take away already from this speaker that I know is going to carry forward into the dedicated review. So here's the takeaway. It's bigger, but it's not too big that this couldn't go in most applications, even, dare I say, a desktop application. I have used other speakers that may not be as wide as this, but they are taller than this and not really that much shallower. What I'm saying is this is a very good size for a bookshelf speaker. Not too big, not too small. Goldilocks bookshelf speaker. On the top, handling the higher frequencies. By the way, 40 hertz up to 28,000 hertz. The tried and true folded ribbon, AMT, tweeter. I know people debate that. It says folded ribbon on the website. We'll call it an AMT, or if it doesn't matter. Tried and true. This is the tweeter they've used in pretty much all their speakers. Fantastic tweeter. I love this tweeter. And I had a nice conversation with Dan over at Emotiva. And we talked about crossover points. Because I've tried my hand at designing my own speakers. And it's been wildly unpopular and a huge failure. But I know enough that most AMT tweeters have to be crossed over pretty high in the frequency range, and this one is. So the important thing about that is that the woofer is handling the majority of the mid-range duties. So in order to get a very linear response, or a response that's not distracting because it's popping all over the place, you have to have a woofer that rolls off very smoothly. Because when you're crossing over a speaker, the woofer has a tendency to kind of go down and then it just spikes all over the place. And those spikes, coupled with a tweeter, can cause all sorts of frequency issues that really can be unpleasant. A little peak here and there is not bad, but the amount of spikes that a woofer that doesn't roll off smoothly can cause in a frequency response can be and will be distracting and not really sound all that good. Unless for whatever reason you have some major hearing loss at that specific frequency. Point being that we had a discussion and Dan schooled me on speaker design. It was a lot of fun and I learned quite a bit. The takeaway here is that the woofers are designed specifically to go with these tweeters, which means they have a smooth roll-off, which means there's no mid-range issues with breakup on the woofer at higher frequencies. So the elephant in the room is how these look. I have heard this over and over again in the comments section. Not over and over. I guess there's a minority of folks out there that do not like the look of this speaker. And I understand. It is unapologetically Emotiva. Personally, I like that because it's cool to be different. And it's not only cool to be different, but it's cool to lean in being different and just go for it. Comes in one color, black. Has the angled front baffle. Has a kind of like a leather wrap instead of a vinyl wrap that's trying to be wood. This isn't trying to be wood. Maybe it's trying to be leather. I don't know. Some type of lizard skin. But it's definitely not trying to look like any other speaker, which is cool. Here is the grill. The grill is very similar to the rest of the Emotiva lineup. It is magnetic. All right. And it goes on just like this. And frankly, this one seems like it's a little bit stronger than the B1 Plus. On the B1 Plus, if I kind of did this, the grill would kind of fall off. Not saying that that's a bad thing, but if I bump this around a little bit, it doesn't seem like it's going to come off. So maybe they upgraded the magnets. I don't know. Goes on with magnets and stays in place, which is cool. All right. On the back, I just said that, and then the grill pops off. Okay, sorry, Emotiva. You can bill me. I'll take care of that. All right, on the back, yeah, you can see that. So this is the first bookshelf speaker I think that they have that can be bi-amped or bi-wired. As you can see, there's two sets of binding posts. I have not done that. I may do that because my AVR has bi-wire capability. You can hook it up to two different channels. And then a port on the back. The side is exactly like every other Emotiva speaker. You can see there's a little bit of an angle on the baffle here. You have some angles down here. I love the way they look. I always have, and I think I always will. Some people say this will never go into my living room. And I said on the B1 Plus review, like, listen, just get an old speaker that you like the looks of and then put this speaker inside it. Cut off the front baffle, figure your way out. I'm sure there's going to be so many issues if you do that. Stick this inside another speaker that you like the looks of because it sounds that good. High-level overview of the sound signature. Top end, ultra clear. Probably the clearest that I've heard. It really is the clearest highs that I've heard out of any speaker except for other Emotiva speakers. And it has everything to do with this tweeter. I'm not saying that this treble is better, but if one is into clarity like I am, then this speaker is better for me. There are other speakers out there. The Yamo Concert Series, C93, C91, their C Towers, they have a lot of clarity on the top end. Not as clear, not as airy, not as effortless with the clarity as the Emotiva speakers. I was always hoping that this speaker would come out because I think it fills a gap. And it feels really a need because not everybody can have floor standing speakers. You have the T0, which is a similarly priced floor standing speaker. Not everybody can have that though. And I put these right on my little television console and they did just fine. They weren't rattling all over the place. Of course, if you want to do some isolation, you can, or put them on stands, whatever you want to do. But these are small enough that they can be put in a variety of places and they play big. One of the things I like to do when I'm listening to a new speaker is have my wife sit down and listen for a second. I always promise her, listen, just sit down and listen just for a second. Not going to take any time at all. And I put on a track that she likes. I put on Alanis Morissette, King of Pain, off the MTV Unplugged. And I said, what do you hear? She said, I hear everything. It's so clear. How about the instruments? She said, well, I hear a lot of instruments. And then I kind of put words in her mouth. I was like, so instrument separation is really good. And she's like, yeah. The next thing she said I found very interesting and telling. She said, these things are really big. They sound really big, like those other big speakers you put on the floor. Quote. That's pretty much the initial impressions. Mid-range on here felt a little bit more natural than the B1 Plus. And I think it could have to do with the larger woofer. The B1 Plus, although just a phenomenal speaker, for some people is not going to have the most natural tonality. And I don't care, because even though it may not have a facsimile presentation of a real voice, it still gives me that clarity. And there's give and take with speakers. There's really no perfect speaker out there for everyone. There's perfect speakers out there for your proclivities or what you like to hear in a speaker. And the B1 Plus was just about as close as I could get from a small bookshelf speaker that was affordable. This is closer, if not spot on, for me as being a perfect speaker. It gives me clarity and a magnifying glass into the music that is just simply unrivaled at this price point. And I'm talking real clarity. I'm not talking about a boosted treble. I'm talking breath sounds, cymbals, percussion. Everything on the top end is in the room. Now, with that clarity, sometimes there can be a bit of a breakdown in the soundstage. Now, it's not all the time. Similarly to the B1 Plus, the T0 Plus, with some cymbal crashes, some high end, some treble frequencies, things can come forward a bit. It doesn't bother me. Although soundstage and imaging is a priority for me, this speaker as a whole is so good that every once in a while, a little bit of a distraction in the soundstage doesn't bother me at all. I don't even think I mentioned the price. I think it's supposed to be, what we discussed was $400, and that should be, this speaker should be available today. At $400, what one is getting from the speaker, I think, is completely unrivaled right now in the industry. One could argue with me, of course they could, but there's no speaker that has this sound signature with this level of clarity, with this level of bass. I turned this to full range. I turned my subwoofer off to make sure that I wasn't hearing any of the sub. And the bass was absolutely 100% usable. And when I say usable, I mean I wasn't missing anything, or I didn't feel like I was missing anything with music. Now, with movies, of course, you're going to want a subwoofer. I have these going right now in my largest room. And even on their website, they said this can, be a great 2-channel in a smaller room. I disagree with that, Emotiva. You're selling yourself short, because these can play in the largest of rooms. Probably not at 90 dB when you're 10 feet away, but at reasonable listening levels, this speaker can play in any room. In houses, because my living room is huge. Huge ceilings, big, open concept type of a room. It hits every box that is important to me on a speaker. It has great bass presence. It's not lean. The mid-range is balanced. I don't know what a frequency response would look like on this speaker, but I never felt like the mids were too forward or too far recessed. Now, again, I needed to spend more time with it. And then the top end is just sublime. Really just unrivaled. I think this is going to be one of the most popular speakers that Emotiva sells. And I think if you're not familiar with the Emotiva or the levels of clarity that you get from their speakers, I think this is a great way to get introduced to that. And this could be your be-all, end-all speaker, because I think the 6.5-inch two-way bookshelf speaker is really a great place to start and end your 2-channel journey. And again, I think this speaker can absolutely anchor a left, center, and right speaker for your home theater. They have the C1 Plus, C2 Plus, and the ginormous C3 Plus for a center channel if you want to get a center channel. The irony is, though, when my daughter and I watched Dead Man's Chest by Pirates of the Caribbean, not by Pirates, it's just that movie, okay? Zero issue hearing dialogue. None whatsoever. Dialogue was fantastic. I never thought it was too low at all. If you only have the budget for these two, just don't run a center channel. Long term, probably you want a center channel. but don't think that you're going to be missing a whole heck of a lot. Am I gushing over this speaker? Of course I am. It's Emotiva. I'm a huge Emotiva shill. They pay me in tacos. Seriously, they bought me some tacos. Being 100% transparent here. I ate tacos with Emotiva. So I have no problem recommending this speaker. I anticipate the full review is going to be just as glowing, and I think if you need a new set of speakers, you need this form factor, and you are after clarity, then I don't think you can go wrong for a $400 pair of two-way 6.5-inch bookshelf speakers that hit 40 hertz on the bottom end and have the characteristic that you're going to hear things in music that you've listened to hundreds of times. You're going to hear new stuff in the music with this speaker. Amp pairings, I think, is going to be... I think these are going to play well with anything except for the lower end. I wouldn't even say lower end. I think these are going to pair well with anything except really lean Class D amplifiers. Frankly, unless the speaker is really warm, I don't think many speakers pair well with really thin sounding Class D amplifiers. So obviously any of the Emotiva amp offerings are going to sound great. If you're on a real budget, the IEMA T9, IEMA A07, the SMSL DA9 if you put some EQ on it. But the A2 Mini is $330. Great pairing with these. Fantastic pairing. So, if you want to support the channel, you can sign up for Patreon, patreon.com/cheapaudioman. You can also use the thanks button. It's right down below this video next to the share button. Give me a couple bucks. Buy me a cup of coffee if you like. But don't feel compelled to give me anything. These will be linked as affiliate links, which means if you click any buy, I will get a commission. It doesn't cost you any more though, so it's a great way to support the channel. Did I talk about Amazon Music? You can sign up for Amazon or Tidal. Links in the description. I get a couple of bucks if you sign up. So don't binge watch anything on Netflix or Hulu. Binge it, listen through your new Emotiva B2 Plus and fill your soul with happiness. And with that, I'm Randy. I'm the Cheap Audio Man.